Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Wholistic House Podcast. My name's Katrina Ellis, and I'm a naturopathic doctor with 30 years of clinical experience in every area, but particularly in the field of oncology.
Perfect. Love that introduction. And who is this podcast for today?
So, I wanted to do our podcasts are pretty raw and they'll get better and better each time. So, I wanted to do this podcast for anyone that is interested in staying supremely healthy and free from any type of disease, particularly cancer.
Okay. Going off that, say if someone wanted to prevent kind of chronic diseases or cancer, what would you tell them to do right now or to focus on?
So, what the focus would be on changing the metabolic terrain of your body. So, what I mean by that is the old approach of dealing with chronic disease, but particularly things like cancer, would be to burn, cut, poison, but never look at what drove the imbalance in the first place. So, when we look at any disease or health condition, the most important thing to look at is why did your terrain within your body go wrong? What happened to your mitochondria? So, basically, we have these beautiful cells, trillions of cells in every part of the human body. And within those cells, we produce energy, ATP or adenosine triphosphate. This cellular energy is a beautiful process that occurs and it keeps the balance within the body. So if something goes wrong with the mitochondria and we change our natural metabolic terrain to one that's more acidic, lower in oxygen, high in oxidative stress, high in inflammation, then we start to create a pathway where disease can flourish.
Going off this terrain, is there multiple terrains? What are you speaking about when you say terrain?
Yes. So when I'm talking about the terrains in the body, there is multiple kind of areas. And I've actually just listed 10 of my most important that I deal with, particularly with anything like cancer or chronic disease, that I like to get right. Because oftentimes I say, people will say, for instance, when you get cancer, for instance, and it might be breast cancer or prostate, the medical way of looking at things is that it's one cause, right? You've got too much hormone. That's what's causing it, it's driving it, right? I completely disagree, right? That might be one imbalance that's occurred in the body, but our body's like an onion. So there's many layers and factors that led to this in the first place. Our DNA will not become damaged from one factor like too much estrogen, right? It takes a multitude of factors to create the imbalance. And luckily, within the human body, we're equipped with multiple protective systems that try to stop this process from occurring. But if we get whacked over and over, emotionally and physically, eventually those layers break down, DNA damage occurs, we get the mutation, and something chronic like MS, Parkinson's, whatever it may be, or cancer may form. So there's 10 key terrains that I love to look at, right? And these have been proudly researched and forwarded by some incredible researchers, naturopaths and doctors in the world, one of them being Dr. Natasha Winters, and many people know the research behind Dr. Jane McCullough as well. And they're really helping people around the world discover that if you get something like cancer, it's not necessarily about killing the bad cells, but it's more about changing the terrain in the body. And now they've discovered that bad cells like cancer cells can actually revert back into healthy cells. Right? So we never knew this before. And to do that, there's 10 key terrains we need to look at, right?
Let's hear it.
Okay, number one, glycemic control. So what we're looking at here is getting blood sugars down. So we all know that one of the main fuel supplies for bad cells or cancer cells in the human body is too much sugar, right? Even though medically they don't necessarily agree with this, but we do know it's true because basically these cells can revert to feeding off a lot of sugar. So getting the glycemic load down and under control by bringing your carbohydrate and sugar content down is one of the most important things you can do. Of course, you can use off labels like metformin, berberine, these types of things to get it under control. So this is one of the most important areas.
Do things like sweet potato fall under that, or is it just like processed sugars?
It is processed sugars, but in some instances where diet has been really bad and the IGF and IG1, which is insulin growth factor pathways, are extremely high, which can be measured in targeting testing, then in those cases, we probably want to eliminate potato, sweet potato for some people, but not all people, right? So normally going fresh fruit and vegetables, organic produce is okay, but one of the keys as well is getting this body into a state of ketosis for some people, because we know cancer cells cannot feed off ketones. And what we mean by that is normally the cell is using carbohydrates or natural sugars for energy, right? But it's about reverting the way the cell operates and getting it to use natural fats to produce energy. So by that we mean low glycemic, moderate protein, and high natural fats to revert the way the cell produces energy and the cancer cell operates, basically. So that's number 2, right? Looking at mitochondrial health, what has gone wrong with the mitochondria? The mitochondria is using a different energy source. We do know from research over many, many years, and some of the best researchers in the world, is that cancer cells cannot survive in an alkaline and oxygenated environment.
What is an alkaline oxygenated environment look like?
Okay, so what that means is that the pH of the blood operates at this very narrow extreme, and generally, from 6.8 to 7.2 type of thing. But what happens is when everything goes wrong, we're stressed, we're eating the wrong foods, we're having processed, pesticides, whatever it may be, toxins, the blood pH becomes more acidic and lower in oxygen and higher in inflammation, and it becomes a perfect environment for bad cells to multiply.
Okay.
Right? So that's what we're looking at. Number 3, one of the most important things in the world is to get the inflammation down. Right? It's no wonder some incredible substances like quercetin, resveratrol, your turmeric are some of the most potent and beneficial anti-cancer and anti-autoimmune substances in the world, because we know disease flourishes in a highly inflammatory environment, right? How do we get it down?
Just I was going to ask, if they knew that they had high inflammation in the body,
yes,
what would you tell them to do right now? Like a top 2 things to focus on right now.
Okay, so the focus would be increasing your omega-3 within your diet. So what I mean by that is if you increase your omega-3 2-3 times more than what you're doing now, it starts to push the body's pathways down an anti-inflammatory pathway. So we mean adding in good omega-3s, so chia seeds, your flax seeds, avocado, berries, basically, and your oily fish, very rich in omega-3. So number 1, start to focus on good omega-3, phytoplankton oil too, and phytoplankton rich in omega-3, beautiful, clean, love it. That's one way. Number 2, bring your stress levels down, right? And get good sleep, right? So when you're not sleeping and you're not getting deep sleep, you're driving up inflammation, right? So that's one of the key things. When you're stressing, you're driving up acidity, stress hormones, and keeping your body in this inflamed environment. Number 3, you could add some incredible natural anti-inflammatory tools or substances that are found in nature. What are some of the good ones? Like I said, resveratrol, your quercetin, turmeric, curcumin from turmeric, boswellia, these incredible natural anti-inflammatory substances that start to push you down this anti-cancer, anti-autoimmune, and anti-inflammatory pathway.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Number 4, hormone balance. Massive key, right? So when our hormones are out of whack, so for instance, with males, low testosterone, females, high estrogen or the poor forms of estrogen, basically it creates imbalances in the body that drives inflammation and fuels the growth of bad cells. So for instance, too much of the wrong form of estrogen, which could be mimicked through pesticides, glyphosate, you name it, actually makes things grow, right? So research has now proven that too much 4-hydroxyestrogen or 16-hydroxyestrogen can actually stimulate things like brain tumors, lung cancer, not just hormonal types, but all other types. So it's very important to maintain hormonal balance.
For the viewers, do you say 4-hydroxyestrogen and
Yes.
16-hydroxyestrogen?
Yes.
What is that?
So in your body, your body metabolizes 3 forms of estrogen, 2, 4, and 16, just to put it rudimentarily without going into chemistry too much.
Okay.
But 2 is the good estrogen. For females, it keeps us young, stops us wrinkling, keeps our bones strong. We love 2. 4 is mutagenic, so too much of that can turn cells into bad cells. And 16 makes things grow. So if I have too much 16 estrogen, I may get fibroids, endometriosis, cysts. So they make things grow. But then if I keep stimulating with too much 16, basically it can turn into something bad. How we metabolize these is through the gut and the liver, which gets me onto the next one, the gut microbiome. So I am obsessed with the gut, right? Yeah. So people say it, but I even remember 30 years ago or longer, when I was studying, they always said back then, it was always all about your gut health, focus on the gut. And now the old saying of if the gut was healthy, the body is healthy is becoming true. So what I mean by that is the gut microbiome is incredibly important because 70% of your entire immune system is housed within the gut, right? So a good example is if a bacteria like Akkermansia, right, very important bacteria, is low, and you're going down the pathway of doing some immunotherapy, medical immunotherapy, it won't work. It needs Akkermansia to actually function well, right? If your bacteroids are low, your DNA will not repair themselves, right? So your gut has the biggest impact on what your systemic immunity is doing and how well your other orthodox treatments will work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say if someone had bad gut health, what would you tell them to do right now?
Okay, a couple of things. If I'm dealing with something chronic, I normally organize a gut microbiome test. I think it's very important to fine-tune things. There's a very famous immunotherapy doctor in America, and he gets the most success with immunotherapy of any doctor in the world. And the first thing he does is he does a gut microbiome with all these clients. And this is a medical immunotherapy doctor that specializes in cancer treatment. So what he's discovered is if he can get the gut right through doing a gut microbiome, the immunotherapy will work effectively and the body won't become resistant to it, right? So number one, I like to do that. From understanding how the gut microbiome works, then I like to fine tune it. So for instance, if I need to kill off something bad, like bad microbes, bad parasites, bacteria, then we might do a kill, but then a rebuild phase, right? So rebuild could look at things like certain types of probiotics, prebiotics as well. The most important thing to remember, a lot of people go, oh, I've just got to take probiotics. I've got to take probiotics, lots of them. In a lot of cases, if you have some bad bacteria there, probiotics will just fuel their growth.
So
right?
That makes the kill phase important?
That's exactly right. If you have any parasites, bad bacteria, mold, anything within the gut, you have to kill first and then you've got to rebuild.
Yeah.
Right? That's important. So that's why it's very important to do testing. You can do gut microbiomes. We also do a lot of testing on site as well. So we look at minerals, see if you're producing hydrochloric acid, see if we've got pancreatic enzymes. So there's a lot more to building a gut microbiome than just looking at your species.
Yeah.
That's one. The other one is your toxic load. So when we're looking at the 10 terrains, we're looking at how toxic are you, right? So what I mean by that is, are you loaded with heavy metals? Are you loaded with microplastics? What about mold, right? And people never think about these things. It's very important because a lot of people don't realize things like mold, aspergillus, can drive cancer, right? So what I mean by that is they go, well, my house is not moldy. Where does it come from? Mold spores actually live on every grain, nut, seed. But what's happening all the time is your body, even coffee. So if you drink coffee every day, most coffee beans have mold, right? Oh. So the idea is not necessarily your exposure, which is still important, but how you remove these things, right? So the reason I love DNA and look at a lot of DNA is I want to know, how is your liver detoxifying? Do you have any deletions in your glutathione genes? If you do, you'll remove mold 75% less effectively. So we're looking at things like your toxic load, and if it is high, bringing that toxic load down.
Would you say, is all toxic load, go through the liver? Is it all detoxified through the liver?
And lymphatic system.
And lymphatic system.
Yeah. So generally, yes, it uses the liver. If the liver's not working well because of a lot of genetic stuff, overload, it will use the skin as an exit point, which is why often we'll start to get rashes or skin problems. It will use the lymphatics. And the problem with that is the lymphatic system is incredibly important for the immune system. It's where we not only detoxify, but we mature our white blood cells, right? So if it's toxic, how do we mature them? This is the other side. So I'm very big on finding out if there's a toxic load. It's one of the terrains. And if there is, do we need to take the stress off the liver? Do we need to do some near-fast saunas, sweating through the skin, doing coffee enemas, things like that, that will actually take the load off, and we're bringing our toxins down so it's not mimicking hormones to drive growth of bad things.
What if someone they drink every weekend? How is that affecting the liver and your toxic load?
It's not great.
Let's
Let's be perfectly honest here. Like, so many people come in and go, I'll do everything, but I'm not giving up drinking, right? The problem with that is if you've got it into a chronic condition, like, I'm not just saying cancer, it could be anything. You could have autoimmunity, Hashimoto's, you name it. If you just save it all up for the weekend and then drink on the weekend, there's basically can be a big toxic burden. You have to eliminate the toxins or the load for a period of time, and bring things back gently if you need to bring them back in. Because one of the things is not just the sugar content from alcohol, it's the conversion into aldehyde, a toxic substance. It's the stripping of your folate. So it strips your B12 and your B9. That's how we repair DNA. So it's important. What is the most important thing? You want to be healthy and you want to be cancer-free, right? So you need to look at these kind of avenues as well, that if that's a driver, then you'll have to take that driver away for a period of time until you get balance again, right? And then once you're in balance, it's okay to do a little bit of some things as long as it's the healthy version of things.
Do you find that people, they'll give up things for a certain period of time? They'll realize, okay, this is a big driver towards my chronic condition. But once they cure it, do you find they just go all back into what they were doing before?
It's probably my most frustrating thing as a practitioner, right? The biggest question I get asked is, when can I cut all this stuff out, right? And what I mean by that is you could get someone into a really healthy, balanced position, and medically they'll say, oh, you're in remission, or whatever it may be. And then they go, okay, I don't want to take anything anymore. Like, when can I start cutting this stuff out? It took years for your body to get into that bad state. So it's going to take years for you to reverse everything. Yes, you may turn things around initially, but I always say it's like a lifetime process, or at least 2 years going really hard, and then a lifetime of remembering why you got into this position in the first place and changing those drivers and those bad habits that led to the breakdown within your body. It's so important, right?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So focusing on bad habits and removing them and building those good habits.
100%. And people go, oh, I can't do anything fun anymore. I mean, once you can definitely have a little treat here and there, but making the primary part of your diet and all these mindset changes, 95 or more % of everything you do, then if you have a little treat, it's not going to throw the balance off, right, which is important. The other really important terrain is the immune function, right? So we've got to look at the immune system. Now, I absolutely love this. I've been watching so much research on these, scientists and researchers that produce cancer drugs saying we have the cure to cancer, right? And what is it? Oh, this is amazing. It's all to do with the cell in the body, right? And we've been focusing on this for 30 years or more in naturopathy. And I'm like, oh, wow, they've discovered it finally. No, I'm just kidding.
Only took you 30 years.
No, but basically, I love it because everyone's cottoning on, and it's all to do with these incredible. And I don't think it's the one cure, but it's definitely going to help. And it's to do with these incredible cells in the human body, which are our body's natural Pac-Man, right?
Okay.
So if you remember the game Pac-Man, right? These little cells go and gobble up the bad cells, and they're known as natural killer cells, right? So when you do a blood test and you break down your neutrophils, your basophils, and all your white blood cells, you'll see on there a little thing called lymphocytes, right? If you want to go further and find out what your immune system's doing, you can ask your GP to do a test. It's called a T cell lymphocyte subset. Now, what that does is it tells us how many B cells, suppressor cells, helper cells, and natural killer cells you have in your body. So every natural killer cell can kill 47 cancer cells in its lifetime, right? So the key then would be to boost up these cells because these little Pac-Man are only attracted to cancer cells or viral cells is the other one if you've got something viral going on, and they go through the blood and they go and eat them, right? So what happens is they're stimulated by a substance called interleukin-15, right? Now, interleukin-15 is often only released for 10 minutes to an hour per day, right? So how do we make it release more, right? One of the ways is weight-bearing exercise, they've discovered.
So resistance training?
Resistance training, amazing. That releases interleukin-15, right? The other one is found in medicinal mushrooms, right? So your maitake, your reishi, your cordyceps, your turkey tail, they've discovered that, well, lo and behold, they actually produce more natural killer cells and make them scavenge better, right? And the other really key one is astragalus and cat's claw, right? So if you were to take these medicinal mushrooms more often throughout the day, you would have a continuous release of interleukin-15, which would continuously release the natural killer cells and boost them up, right? Shiitake is another great one as well when it's fermented in rice bran oil. So definitely the medicinal mushrooms.
So are you trying to increase the period at which these cells are released by your body, or are you trying to...
Both.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're increasing both.
You're increasing the number.
Yeah.
Right? So when you get a test back, it might say, look, your number's only running at a low percentage and we want to get it above, say, 20%, when most people might only be running at 1%. They're not making enough of it because they don't have all the key factors to produce them, right? So that's one. They're boosters, but of course, to get your natural killer cells up, you've got to have good gut health. You've got to have low toxicity, all of these terrains.
So all those previous things have to be ticked off before.
That's exactly right, right? So I love my natural killer cell boosters. And it's interesting, if you look at a lot of Asian countries, particularly Japan, when they're going into treatment in Japan, which may be chemotherapy or radiation, they encourage them to take medicinal mushrooms, right? You look at the incredible product that was produced called Ribrax or MGN3. We have Ribrax in Australia and it's by a great company called Biomedica. It's from Japan, right? And researchers over there discovered, and they highlighted it and showed it in studies, that within a short time of taking it, you could see natural killer cells all of a sudden boosting and going and directly eating cancer cells or viral cells within the body, right? So it's about continuously boosting. So when they do treatment over there, they're instantly encouraged to go on medicinal mushrooms, right?
Is the same thing applicable for here?
No.
Sure.
Right? It all depends on, your oncologist or specialist, right? And then they might hand it to the pharmacist, right? And some pharmacists say you can't do that, right? Without any knowledge, so it's not encouraged. It's a great accessory treatment beside what you're doing, right? Because all it's doing is working on the immune system, keeping natural killer cells up. And the other beautiful thing they found, it reduced side effects from treatment. Less nausea, less fatigue, less white blood cell infection. So it's a beautiful accessory treatment to work alongside of what you're doing, right? Which is beautiful. Let's not go too much more into that.
So
yes.
This is just your opinion, of
this
course.
This is my opinion.
This is
yeah.
But you would suggest people, if they're doing immunotherapy, to use mushrooms alongside of it
Yes.
and some natural remedies alongside?
I would say the medicinal mushrooms are beneficial for everyone in this world. So if you want to stay healthy, and they have to be the right medicinal mushrooms as well. Sometimes, if they're not in the right form, the polysaccharides might be too big, so you're not going to absorb them, right? But every medicinal mushroom has a benefit. In fact, things like chaga, cordyceps, turkey tail, all of them have an effect on white blood cells and on your natural killer cells within the body. But they also help things like they help you adapt to stress. They bring down stress hormones. They help with fatigue. They build your gut microbiome. They're a prebiotic. You think of the magic of them and it's phenomenal, right? They are one of my favorite things in the entire world, and they just work with everything.
From before, you were saying if someone got a test
Yes.
and the natural killer cells were some people in 1%,
Yes.
what would they be going through, or what would that kind of person look like?
They'd probably be prone towards viruses, infections, and they would probably be in a position where they're fighting cancer in many respects, or something really bad and viral as well. So they may not recognize it as a symptom, but it will be recognized as an imbalanced condition, right? So generally, if your natural killer cells are high, they're scavenging really well, you'll maintain good wellness, right? Because they're basically going through the body and killing those viral cells, killing off any bad cancer cells that are forming, and keeping your body in a state of homeostasis.
So
right?
It's a good early sign to look out for.
That's right. Yeah. So you don't have to just do the test if you have cancer. You can go and do the test as a form of, how can I get my immune system more primed towards staying well, basically. So it is a test that anybody can do to prime their immune system.
Especially, do you find that modern society is becoming a lot more toxic in general?
I do. I feel that our environment's more toxic. There's more sprays in the air. We used to think that tank water was amazing, but now the water coming through the atmosphere is picking up all the pollution and going into the tanks, right? So now it's not as clean as what we used to think, right? So our environment is more loaded with toxins. I mean, on average, there's another 800 toxins being added to the environment yearly, even though they pretend there's not, but there actually is, right? And so it's definitely becoming more toxic. But interesting, younger people, I find your generation and even younger, are becoming more clued on, right? Because they have access to information, AI. They're basically researching things more now, and they're aware of it. I always say it's never the load, but it's how you remove things. Yeah. Right?
I research a lot, of course, but yes. I have you to come back to and, confirm stuff. And I know there's a lot of people who are probably watching this, and they'll do all their own research on AI and, on chat. Make me up a protocol for this. I've got this. I want this sort of outcome.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a good start, but I also believe that everyone's an individual, right? For number one, a lot of this is not approached on the pace that you've got your own unique genetics, your own unique environment. And it takes a lot of clinical experience to work out exactly how to rebalance a person. It can't all be done through ChatGPT and AI and all these types of things, although they're great tools to assist in finding out more knowledge. But sometimes what's written there doesn't actually transcribe into what's really happening with the individual, right? So I still think it's important. That's why I love what we do as naturopathic doctors or in the field of naturopathy, if we're the people that are good at it, of course, is because I utilize a lot of advanced testing. So when I work, I don't just go, okay, I'm just taking a case down and, okay, I've worked it out now. I use tools, right? So I use tools. We're not allowed to stay diagnostic in our field, but basically that's what they are, even though I'm not allowed to say it. But they're giving me an analysis of what's out of balance. So I could do things like heavy metal testing, mineral testing. I could use live blood. I can use all types of incredible tools to give me incredible information about the individual in that moment and what has given them the drivers towards imbalance and how to correct and fix things, right? It's the same if I'm working in the oncology field. I love to do targeting testing. So what I mean by that is you can basically test the pathways of why you have the imbalance and then use natural substances, diet, emotional tools to correct those pathways so it's not stimulating things while you change the body's terrain. So instead of just using a sledgehammer approach, which is a lot of the metabolic pathways now, which is just incorporating everything, incorporate every off-label and everything, and that the problem with that is there's some things you may not need to take, right? And then if you take too much off labels, your gut microbiome breaks down, and there's a factor where the immune system starts to suffer.
Interesting. So it can have an adverse effect.
Well, it can I think it can be very beneficial to some respect, but it's even better once you know your individual pathways. So a good example is people might say, well, I've got prostate cancer. When I'm reading all these books, they're saying these are the pathways. But once you do genetic kind of testing of either the cells or the tumor tissue, you'll find that you're not expressing that pathway, right? So you might be taking 3 or 4 off labels that are not needed for you, and those off labels might be breaking down your gut microbiome.
When you say pathways, what do you mean by that?
So pathways, I mean the metabolic pathways that the cells might be using for growth. So what I mean by that is glucose or sugar, could be using glutamine, iron. So different types of growth pathways, COX-2, inflammation. So when you do targeting testing, you can actually work out the exact pathways and the percentage of those pathways, so you know how to naturally block those with foods, nutritionals or off labels if necessary, and then you're not incorporating a million other things that people tell you should be taking this, you should be taking that, take this, So it allows you to fine tune towards your own situation, right? And then I always go, well, let's look at your own genetics too. Because what went wrong, to lead you into this position in the first place? Let's not just look at how to block and stop growth and change the environment. Let's look at what actually went wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm almost there. I've got a couple more. The other one is angiogenesis of my 10 terrains. So angiogenesis, if you don't know, you probably heard this, is when we're growing as babies, to grow, we have to produce capillary networks for growth. That's how we grow arms. That's how we grow legs. So we have these proteins in the body that bring in blood supply to make us grow and heal, right? The only time you don't want too much angiogenesis is when you have cancer, right? So what do we mean by that? If the cancer or the imbalance is putting off certain proteins like EGF, VEGF, FGF, angiogenic 1 and 2, and they're at a high level, they steal capillaries to bring in blood supply to grow and spread. So blocking angiogenesis and correcting it is extremely important.
So certain cancers can take over your angiogenesis network?
Yes, that's exactly what happens. So one of the keys, so if you look at medically, they might use angiogenic blockers to stop things, which can be really successful, and it can block things to give you time to come in and kill. We would look at natural things like EGCG, vascustatin, which is not a statin. It comes from the convolucus plant, your sea cucumber. So these things have things in them. And the old one used to be shark cartilage, right? So when you take those, it would block the VEGF, the EGF, and those types of things and stop the bad capillary networks that will make things grow.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
That's why we got angio blockade.
Yeah.
I only just realised
that.
That's so cool.
It's true.
BPC 157.
Yes.
A lot of people have been taking it and they don't do their research into it and see if they have cancer.
Yes.
Would that,
encourage it to grow?
Encourage
yes.
angiogenesis.
That's right.
Cancer cells.
Yeah, it would. So it's great for healing. But if you've got a situation in the body where you've got a cancer that might be angiogenic and you're not even aware of it, it will just encourage more blood supply to that area. So it can be dangerous in that situation.
Interesting. And what else have you
I've only
out
got a
there, Si?
couple left. Oxidative stress, which we talked about in our first, we talked about in a few videos. So it's about ROS, very similar to inflammation, overcoming oxidative stress that might be damaging your DNA within the body. And then the last one, which is super important, not last but not least, is your mental state, right? So it's looking at, I often say that cancer, or any illness is 20 to 30% your hardware, and then we've got our software and hardware. So physically we've got the hardware and then we've got the software. So what I mean by that is, have you had any traumas, loss? Is there something emotional that has occurred where you're holding that trauma in your subconscious to create disease? So looking at changing your emotional and spiritual terrain and seeing what the drivers were is really important. So I'm very big on that, because I always see people, they might just work on the physical, but they never get to the end of where they want to go unless they deal with the emotional as well.
What do you find most of the time is wrong with people's mindsets?
I think holding on to traumas.
Okay.
Number one, I feel things happen in our life, and instead of releasing them and letting go and knowing this is the cycle of life, they'll hold them in their subconscious. And then things like poor sleep, poor diet, all those things make it ruminate, right? Like within there. So I find, and what they don't realize is we're thinking over and over about these things. And this is, I feel, the problem with, say, modern counselling, things like that, which can be useful for some people, is that we probably need deeper techniques to clear the traumas within there. So we're talking about things that we have talked about before, things like your EFT, your Psych K, your biomatrix re-imprinting, things that can actually release it from our subconscious, because sometimes the trauma could be carried through another generation. So
how does that come about?
Well, there could be something generational, because we do know now, even when a mother's pregnant, the baby's ears develop at 6 weeks and they're already picking up on the emotions, the trauma and that within the womb. So there could be something that's carrying through generations and the parent is passing through to the child unaware, and then you start to carry that through. And that's really important, because we look at these types of things, and if we're holding on to them, they create a toxin within the body and they do physically change things. Because we say to people, you shouldn't stress. You have to release stress. I look at ways to deal with stress. How can that physically change us to create a situation where bad things grow? A perfect example is, if I'm stressed all the time and worrying and stressed and worrying, I might create neurotoxic substances like pherols. Those pherols are neurotoxic. They strip me of magnesium, zinc, B6, and gamma-linolenic acid. That causes my copper to rise, and that promotes angiogenesis. That's just a little example.
You can see stress on people's face.
You can
tell when someone's always stressed, they're always negative. It appears on their skin.
Yes.
It's just wild.
It's true. And your frequency or your mood and your emotions is what you create within life, and we know that now through research, is that if you're putting out the wrong frequency or energy, which is stress all the time, then you keep attracting that situation. And having a chronic disease is a stressful situation, so it's just another form of stress.
Yeah, interesting. I know you talked about oxidative stress before, but I feel like we just skipped over it.
Yes.
Do you want to delve a little bit into that?
So oxidative stress damage in the body can be driven by things like free radicals, inflammation. So a free radical is a dangerous substance that can basically insert itself into a chain, an antioxidant chain, and create damage to our DNA. So it can be internal. So it can be from the normal process of the mitochondria. And generally, if we have a dangerous cell in the body, it will generate a lot more free radicals to encourage this process to happen. Luckily, we're equipped with antioxidant systems, which is catalase, our glutathione, our superoxide dismutase, which you can check through your DNA to see if they're working properly. If those three systems are working and are switched on incredible through the right foods, the right nutrients, then oxidative stress is minimized, right? And it won't damage our DNA the same, right?
I want to give people, can I have this?
Yes.
We'll give them a little summary.
Yes.
Just, a little reminder of everything we've gone through today. So it was 10 key terrain factors.
That's right.
You've got to keep your environment clean enough where bad diseases cannot thrive or grow.
That's right.
So number 1 was glycemic control. What's like big overall arching theme with that?
Basically not having insulin resistance, keeping your body so you're not feeding sugars, bad carbohydrates. I did forget with diet too, but fasting.
Fasting,
yeah.
Ketones and that.
Ketones, yeah, we'll go into that one, the second one. So yes, that's right. Cutting all the sugars out, cutting excess protein out, and keeping your glycemic index nice and balanced.
Perfect. And number 2 was ketosis.
Ketosis. So this kind of falls into the fact of what's the perfect diet. And this is not for everyone. Sometimes ketones aren't great for everyone, but I'd say the majority of people. So it's basically going very low carbohydrates and sugars, or no sugar, moderate protein and very high natural fats to get the cells to operate, to burn off ketones rather than living off sugars, right? With that, and looking at diet, we're looking at also incorporating some intermittent fasting or some fasting into the protocol to encourage autophagy and the cleanup of the bad cells.
But only a specific kind of people?
Do you know what? It's great for everyone. Okay. No. So I would say fasting can suit everyone. It's not going to be harmful to anyone to do a little bit of fasting. Just what people that have blood sugar issues and they haven't got balanced yet, just minimize the fasting and don't do any extensive water fasting yet. Right?
And the third one was inflammation.
Inflammation, one of the biggest things. So bad things cannot grow in an anti-inflammatory environment.
Okay, so biggest thing to focus on there.
Omega-3s, increasing omega-3s, removing all your processed foods and saturated fats from the diet, keeping your stress levels low and sleeping well.
Perfect. Hormone balance.
Hormone balance, very important. So doing a urine or saliva hormone test, making sure your hormones stay in balance. So for males, they've got good testosterone. In females, we have a nice balance between progesterone and estrogen.
Perfect. Number 5, toxic load.
Getting rid of any buildup of toxins within your system, because all a toxin will do is make you more acidic, congest your eliminative organs and suppress your immune system.
What kind of toxics?
Yes. Yeah.
Toxins are we focusing on?
So, well, the biggest one in our country is glycophosphates,
Okay.
Pesticides, glycophosphates, any kind of sprays. Heavy metals is another big one. Most people come in, they're loaded with heavy metals. So looking at changing your cookware. Microplastics is another big one, looking at cookware and removing a lot of this stuff from your environment. Your water supply is number 1.
6 is immune function.
Yep. So basically balancing your immune system. So looking at where your lymphocytes sit, boosting up your natural killer cells, which we've talked about are the Pac-Man of the immune system. So you're primed for the immune system, and then you can look at the gut microbiome.
Perfect. Yep. Right onto it, gut microbiome.
Okay, so main part of the immune system, 70% of the entire immune system is housed in the gut. So looking at either doing testing for the gut microbiome or looking at ways to boost up your natural gut microbiome so it is primed against disease.
Perfect. Number 8, angiogenesis.
Angiogenesis is more important when we're looking at more anti-cancer. So basically blocking any poor angiogenesis if you've got too much VEGF, EGF or proteins that are stimulating capillary growth that are fueling tumours. So we're looking at things like EGCG, sea cucumber, your convolucus plant and resveratrol, turmeric as well.
Number 9, oxidative stress.
So keeping oxidative stress levels down. So once again, it goes to toxicity, free radicals, having good digestion, and making sure your catalase, your superoxide, and your glutathione is primed in your body.
Number 10, mental or emotional state.
Number 1,
Yeah.
if you're calm and relaxed, and you remove traumas from the body, it's amazing to see the change within the body. So I've had people that have done everything physical to the T, but done nothing to change their mindset, and it has eliminated their ability to get further. So it's number one is remove traumas and use these incredible techniques like biofield tuning, your biomatrix, EFT that we have access to now to help balance the body and the immune system.
Perfect. So what I'm getting from today is if you want to prevent diseases, that be cancer, any autoimmunity, focus on the environment or terrain within your body.
Yeah, that's right. So using all these incredible natural tools to change your terrain physically and emotionally and spiritually, and you're creating an environment where only healthy mitochondrial boosting cells will flourish.